Let's give some tzedakah with your friends. Together we'll have all the blessings. And Friday, usually share a story. You have some stories that amazing, impressive. But sometimes you have a story which is a wow. What a story. I think this is one of those. Although, why I was surprised. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is all about. That's what the Rebbe is. I mean, this is what a Rebbe is capable of doing. But nevertheless, when you hear this, it strengthens your emunah, your faith in the Vayaminu B'Hashem of Moshe Avdoi, to believe in God and to believe in Moshe Rabbeinu, his servant, and in the Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation. So here's the story of the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, the Rebbe. So this individual by the name, I'm told, Rabbi Eliezer Khan, a very devoted Askan activist in Eretz Yisrael, is on a trip from Eretz Yisrael to New York with a stopover in Paris. He has the day to spend in Paris. He decides to go into the city just to visit. Comes in, I think what he said was a Quartier Latin, and there he sees in a cafe outside a very distinguished individual. Around him, many young students' age, and he's giving them a speech, and this is like flowing, and everybody is listening very intensely. French is not his language, but he was just impressed by the sight. And he stands and looks. After the fellow finished his presentation, he comes over to him, and he's obviously a very visible religious Jew with a beard. So this fellow tells him in proper Hebrew, but with a Eastern European expression, Mal lekoyin bebeis hakvoros. What are you doing here? He's shocked. He didn't think the guy was even Jewish, and now speaks to him in a very, I will say, juicy Yiddish. They get into a conversation, and then he says, I like you. Come over to my house. He has a few hours to kill anyway. Why not? He was intrigued by this individual. Comes into his house, beautiful Parisian home. First, he takes him through the salon, which is a typical Parisian French salon, and says, this is the Goyish, this is the non-Jewish area. Let me take you into the Jewish home. Goes into another room, and there he sees a room, a huge library of Jewish books, all kinds of Gemara, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. He had books of Chassidus, he had the Noam Elimelech. Says, what is this? So he says, look, let me briefly tell you. I am Holocaust survivor, a son of a very, very prominent Hasidic rabbinic dynasty. My family does not know that I survived. They think I perished in the Holocaust, and I don't want them to know that I exist. After the Holocaust, I became very upset with God. I didn't lose faith, but I was very upset with him. I renounced everything, not even Yom Kippur. But there's one thing that God couldn't take away from me. In his words, that God couldn't rob from me, is my love for study Torah. So whenever I have free time from my professional occupation, which is a professor in the Sorbonne on Greek philosophy, I love to study Torah. This fellow was intrigued, and we got into conversation. This Rabbi Eliezer Khan is a very easy conversationalist, and this individual asks him, can I see you tomorrow? Although he was supposed to leave, continue on his trip to New York, he felt there was something urgent. Next day he comes to his house, and he says, look, you're going to New York, I need a personal favor from you. Here is a sealed envelope. I would appreciate you if you bring this to the Rebbe. His was the Lubavitcher Rebbe. One condition, do not give it to anyone else, directly into the Rebbe's hand. And I need you promise you will not open it. Promised. He comes to New York. He was never by the Rebbe. He was never in 770. He goes into the Rebbe's secretary's office. I need an envelope to be handed to the Rebbe. Secretary says, give it to me, I will give it further. Sorry, I promised I will give it directly to the Rebbe. Impossible. Comes one day, another day, nothing happening. Then one day he came, and the Rebbe was davening mincha, I think he said, downstairs in the big shul. On the way out, he knew he can't give it to the Rebbe, but he stood there on the side And suddenly, as the Rebbe walks by, the Rebbe stops, and the Rebbe looks at him. And the Rebbe sticks out his hand, and the Rebbe says, "Nu." He didn't realize what the Rebbe was saying. "Nu." And then the Rebbe points to his jacket. So he realized the Rebbe says, "You have something for me in your jacket." He took out the letter and he handed it to the Rebbe. He didn't say who he is, he didn't say anything, he never met the Rebbe, he was never there. He handed the letter to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said a dank. He then called this person in France and he said, "I did what you asked me." He was very thankful. At, I think it was the following year, Erev Yom Kippur, this Rebbe Lezer Khan is again by the Rebbe. The Rebbe distributes lekach, piece of cake, with a blessing for Happy New Year. And then suddenly the Rebbe gives him another piece without saying who it is, for whom. He realized the Rebbe meant to send it to him. By the time he got through to France, he found out that this person passed away. And unfortunately, he was buried in a non-Jewish cemetery. It bothered him. He discussed it with the Amshenover Rebbe because he couldn't tell anybody. He was sworn to secrecy, not saying to his family. So the Amshenover Rebbe told him, first, don't tell me the name. And then if he was in contact with the Rebbe, don't worry, the Rebbe will look after him. And indeed, a short while later, he found out. No idea who, how, when, and who. Some people came, deterred his body from the non-Jewish cemetery, and gave him a proper Jewish burial. The Rebbe takes care of each and every one of us. But may you see him already in the Beis Hamikdash still before Shabbos.